Tonight, the default debate. A House vote on lifting the debt ceiling sets up a new battle on Capitol Hill. Plus, a new treatment for COVID-19.
But remember, the vaccine is virtually 99% effective at preventing hospitalization.
As health officials meet to discuss vaccine booster shots. And
it should not have been a precipitous, chaotic, and unfortunately deadly departure.
In the wake of the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan, tens of thousands of refugees are fanning out across the United States.
We have legal services, so it's kind of endless.
All this and more tonight on Faith Nation.
The House moving to raise the nation's debt ceiling. Welcome to Faith Nation. I'm John Jessup.
Good evening. I'm Jenna Browder. The Senate voting last week, and tonight the House expected to do the same, raising the nation's debt ceiling until the beginning of December.
Lawmakers essentially kicking the can down the road. But when the issue resurfaces in December, Republicans say Democrats will have to go it alone. For more on how this will all shake out in the coming weeks, we're joined by our Capitol Hill correspondent, Abigail Robertson. Abigail.
Well, as you said, today the House took up the Senate-passed bill that extends the debt ceiling through December. But that deadline is going to be here before we know it. And what happens then is still up in the air. But today, Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, proposed an idea that she says might get bipartisan support, and that would be leaving it up to the Treasury Secretary to decide when the debt ceiling should be raised. Take a look.
That seems to have some appeal to both sides of the aisle because of the consequences to people of not lifting it. But why would many Democrats and Republicans have voted against lifting the debt ceiling, but never to the extent of jeopardizing it. This is the first time.
Pelosi says she believes this idea has merit, and she says that it's something Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell has even expressed support for in the past.
No, interesting. Abigail, where do things stand with infrastructure and the budget reconciliation bills President Biden is hoping Congress will pass?
Well, right now, Democrats are negotiating within their own party on that budget reconciliation package, and House Democrats don't have the votes to pass the infrastructure bill until a deal is reached on that larger reconciliation package. Now, originally, this bill was going to be about $3.5 trillion, but moderate Democrats say that they will not vote for it at that price tag. So right now, Democrats are trying to figure out what's in and what's out of the bill. Leadership has not signaled when a final agreement will be made, but today both Speaker Pelosi and White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki expressed confidence they will come to some kind of agreement, and they're making difficult decisions to decide what to include in the bill. Here's what Psaki had to say earlier today.
If there are fewer dollars to be spent, there are choices that need to be made, and the president agrees. And that's fundamentally true, of course. If it's smaller than $3.5 trillion, which we know it will be, then there are choices that need to be made. But the president's view is that a bill that doesn't pass means nothing changes, and the challenges we're facing are too urgent to do nothing. So that's why at this point, what we have to do is work with a range of members who have a range of views about what should be included in a package, what is a priority to them, so that we can make some fundamental changes.
Now, this reconciliation bill holds most of President Biden's domestic agenda, and Psaki said right now Democrats are trying to figure out what to include that will have the greatest impact for the American people. John, Jenna?
All right, a lot on the line. Capitol Hill correspondent Abigail Robertson, thank you.
Thanks, Abby. Well, here now, CBN News chief political analyst David Brody. David, you just heard Abigail's reporting. She's saying that Speaker Pelosi has floated this idea, supported by Mitch McConnell, to basically put the decision of raising the debt limit in the hands of the Secretary of the Treasury. Could something like this pass in Congress?
It's a possibility, but it's a very fluid situation like it always is in Congress. Isn't it interesting, though? Can we just take a step back and leave it to Congress to pass the buck and put it on the Treasury Department? So, you know what? It's too tough for us. We can't figure it out. We don't have the votes, X, Y, and Z. so we'll just pass it over to the Treasury Department. That is quintessential Washington for you. Does it have the votes? Really hard to tell. No one's whipping the vote at this point. But it is at least potentially some light at the end of the tunnel. But this is a long, dark tunnel that is going to take a while to get out of.
Yeah, David, all that said, come December, they're still going to be in the same situation. NBC's Jonathan Allen says Democrats hold a weaker hand even after what many have described as Senator McConnell's blink, noting that Democratic leaders don't have a plan to avoid another crisis come December. And the damage could be even more pronounced this next time around, David, given Christmas and the holiday season. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's absolutely right. Democrats are going to have the weaker hand. I mean, look, this is what Congress does. They punt it down the road. And so what happens on December 3rd? Well, I mean, I understand there's about a month and a half or so before December 3rd, and maybe the Democrats can get their act together. But the truth of the matter is they have very limited options here. They don't want to pass the debt ceiling within the budget reconciliation bill. And if they don't want to do that, then what else are they left with? So they've got a problem on their hands. And this is going to be all on Democrats, because remember, Mitch McConnell, even though he's taking hits now to say that he caved to the Democrats, well, that actually could come back and be a good thing for Republicans to say, look, we helped you out once, but we're done. We're not helping you out now. Now you figure it out.
Moving from Congress down Pennsylvania Avenue to the White House, David, as we discussed last week, President Biden decided not to shield information about the January 6th riot former President Trump claimed was protected by executive privilege. A lot of ink is being spilled on how this decision, David, could backfire and hurt not only President Biden, but future presidents. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I think more future presidents, though Biden might take some political hits on it as well. Then again, Biden and political hits go synonymous. I mean, they're all in the same sentence at this point. His poll numbers are tanking. But let's take a step back for a second. Executive privilege, this just in, it resides with the current president of the United States, not with Donald Trump. So Donald Trump can't invoke executive privilege. Obviously, Biden could. He's deciding not to. And so now the question is, what will Trump do? And it looks to me, and once again, I've actually asked him this question. He looks like he's going to fight this in court. And what does that mean exactly? Who's he going to sue? Well, he would sue the administration. He could sue Congress. It just depends. But he's also telling folks like Dan Scavino and Mark Meadows and Steve Bannon and others not to testify. Those are the subpoenas out as well. Steve Bannon says he's not going to testify. We haven't heard yet from Scavino and Meadows and others. So we'll see. But there's a range of options here for Trump.
All right. David, just a few seconds left, but today we learned House Budget Chairman John Yarmuth is retiring. He's of Kentucky. David, this is the 5th Democrat in the House to retire this season. What does it say ahead of 2022 and the midterm elections? Yeah,
Democrats are going to be hard-pressed to keep control of the House in 2022. They have 5 defections, as you said. Yarmuth is in a pretty safe district. That shouldn't be a problem. Remember, there are 3 Republicans also retiring in the House. So, I don't think it means too much at the end of the day. But clearly, Democrats have much bigger problems, as in Joe Biden's approval numbers, and they might lose the Virginia State House because of it, because McAuliffe is in a world of trouble in Virginia.
All right, David, we'll have to leave it there. CBN News Chief Political Analyst David Brody. David, thanks so much.
Thanks, guys.
Well, tonight, Texas-based Southwest and American Airlines will keep vaccine mandates for workers in place, thwarting a new Texas ban on vaccine requirements. Republican Governor Greg Abbott and an executive order restricting all entities, including private businesses, from requiring workers to get the shot. The movement in Texas comes as a new treatment for COVID-19 could be on its way, the first antiviral pill designed to fight COVID. Merck seeking FDA emergency authorization. The drug maker says in its initial trials, the drug cut the risk of hospitalizations in half for people at risk for severe disease. The pill can be taken at home, 4 pills every 12 hours for 5 days. And on the vaccine front, the FDA is set to review data on vaccine boosters from Moderna and J&J. If the agency gives the green light, they'll go to the CDC for final approval next week. And here with us now, CBN News medical reporter Lori Johnson. Lori, let's start with the upcoming meetings for the J&J and Pfizer possible boosters. After the Pfizer booster was delayed, do you expect the same for Moderna and J&J?
Jenna, no delays are expected, although they could happen. We do know that Moderna and J&J are bringing forth a little bit of different data than Pfizer brought forth. For example, Pfizer's booster shot is exactly the same as the first 2 shots, but Moderna's booster shot is actually a half dose. And while Pfizer and Moderna both recommend boosters 6 months after the last shot, J&J actually recommends their booster shot only 2 months after the last and only shot for people over 65. Now, something that all 3 of the boosters have in common is they are for everyone over the age of 65, but also anyone over the age of 18 who has a high risk of complications. And remember, that can include obesity, heart disease, and high blood pressure. Also, these boosters will be available to anyone over 18 who lives or works in a high-risk setting. So, for example, if you work at a grocery store, or if you work at a doctor's office, or even if you work around a lot of people who are unvaccinated and refuse to wear masks, and you don't need to show proof of any of these things, you just need to take your vaccination card to the pharmacy and say, for example, I have high blood pressure, or I work at a grocery store, and you'll get your booster.
That definitely expands the list of eligibility there, Lori. You know, a lot of people may be wondering, what about mixing and matching COVID vaccines? If, for example, the booster shots are approved, will people who had the Pfizer vaccine be able to receive the Moderna or J&J booster shots?
Well, the FDA is going to issue guidance on that specifically, and it would not be surprising if they say, yes, it's okay to mix and match, simply because they've already said that. Remember, a number of weeks ago, boosters were recommended for people who are immunocompromised. And the recommendation in that situation was try to get the first shot, the same type of vaccine you had initially, but if you can't, it's okay to get another one. Also, we saw in California where people who got the J&J vaccine were recommended or allowed to get either the Pfizer or Moderna boosters. And we even saw German Chancellor Angela Merkel, who got the AstraZeneca vaccine initially. That's a lot like the J&J vaccine. And then she got a Moderna booster.
Yeah. Lori, what about Governor Greg Abbott's ban on vaccine mandates in the Lone Star State? What does that mean for companies in Texas?
Well, he just issued this executive order, and so a lot of companies are sort of waiting to see what the details are before making any decisions. But we do know that, for example, Southwest Airlines has already said they're moving forward. They're going to stick with that vaccine mandate because that airline and also American Airlines based in Texas are government contractors. So we know that government contractors have a vaccine mandate that where all of the workers have to be vaccinated by December 8th. And the leaders of Southwest Airlines have said that a federal mandate actually supersedes a state executive order. A lot of times we see these things worked out in the courts. For example, earlier this year, we saw Houston Methodist Hospital issue their own vaccine mandate for workers, and a lot of those workers sued, and the court sided with the hospital.
Yeah. All right, CBN medical reporter Lori Johnson. Thank you, Lori. Great information.
Thanks for having me.
Coming up, the Biden White House again setting its sights on the Texas abortion law, where things stand now and where they're headed when Faith Nation returns. Welcome back. Israeli Foreign Minister Yair Lapid is in Washington this week, meeting today with House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Vice President Kamala Harris. His visit comes only weeks after some Democratic lawmakers tried to block funding for Israel's Iron Dome defense system.
I want to use this opportunity to thank you personally for all your great help with the Iron Dome. This is the defense of our children and of our people, and I know you cared about it and you spent some sleepless nights over it.
Support for Israel has always been bipartisan in the Congress of the United States, and it continues to be so.
Lapid is in D.C. for meetings with his counterpart from the United Arab Emirates. They're discussing progress made since the signing of the Abraham Accords last year, future opportunities for collaboration and regional security and stability.
Well, the White House is working to counteract a Texas law that bans nearly all abortions. The Justice Department urging the courts again to step in and suspend the law. The latest attempt comes 3 days after the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals reinstated the law in response to a district judge who suspended it. The law bans abortions in Texas once a heartbeat is detected, which is usually at about 6 weeks. The law's future could be decided in upcoming days, and the Supreme Court could may eventually be forced to decide whether it is constitutional.
Well, another abortion case is hitting the Supreme Court today, whether the Kentucky Attorney General should be allowed to defend an abortion law in the state. The law in question restricts abortions using a dilation and evacuation method of ending a pregnancy after 15 weeks. While it has been blocked by courts since 2018, Tuesday, the Supreme Court appeared inclined to allow the Kentucky AG to revive the challenge to the law, even after Kentucky's Democratic governor declined to defend it. The issue before the court is procedural and does not consider the constitutionality of the law.
When we come back, how a chaotic U.S. withdrawal is leaving tens of thousands of Afghans to fan out across the U.S. Welcome back. Well, the resettlement plan for refugees involves some $6.3 billion. And part of that White House plan involves waiving vetting procedures, fast-tracking green cards, and paving the path to citizenship with welfare benefits for all. Already, tens of thousands of Afghan refugees are making a new life in America.
That's right. 95,000 more are expected to arrive in the United States over the next year. And as CBN's Tara Mergener reports, for some, that's raising an alarm.
Most of these refugees came here temporarily on humanitarian grounds. While there is wide support for those who worked alongside the U.S. after 9/11, there are concerns about those who didn't. Fleeing the homeland. They will kill me. Rushing Kabul's airport, trying to escape violent Taliban rule on U.S. military flights out of Afghanistan. The lucky ones now on American soil.
We must all work together to resettle thousands of Afghans who ultimately qualify for refugee status.
The White House estimates 95,000 Afghans will arrive over the next year.
Many of those fleeing the Taliban rule in Afghanistan are expected to head to states like California, Maryland, and Texas.
Fanning out to nearly every state.
I can imagine, coming to a new community is difficult. Their advantage is that they're English speakers, they are highly educated.
Some worked with U.S. troops and government officials, although most did not.
Here in the United States, we have admitted just over 40,000 individuals. That includes U.S. citizens, lawful permanent residents, special immigrant visa holders.
The State Department says interpreters, drivers, embassy workers, and others who qualified for special immigrant visas should have been evacuated first.
It should not have been a precipitous, chaotic, and unfortunately deadly departure.
A departure that left an unknown number of Americans and U.S. allies behind.
The reason why these folks are in this situation at all is because of their service and their family's service to the U.S. military.
More than a month later, they remain at the mercy of the Taliban with no way out.
They were just killing, they were just beating women, they were just beating kids in front of my eyes.
For those in the U.S., like this group of Afghans at Dulles Airport near Washington, D.C., President Biden is pushing lawmakers to approve a $6.3 billion refugee resettlement plan.
In our own country, raise the cap for our refugees.
The proposal includes waiving standard vetting procedures, fast-tracking green cards, and a path to citizenship, plus welfare benefits for all, regardless of immigration status. A plan critics say is costly.
Now they're bringing in Afghans, giving them green cards, health care, probably free college tuition, food stamps.
even dangerous.
I mean, Afghanistan is a third world country, and now the Taliban are in control of it.
And benefiting people not intended to be here.
There was no vetting. These were people who just got to the airport and managed to get on a plane. And look, nobody blames them for wanting to get out of there, but we don't know who these people are.
Most are housed at military installations before moving on to more permanent destinations. Advocacy groups are also providing resources to help navigate and speed along the immigration process.
We have legal services, so it's kind of endless. We try to be sort of one-stop shopping.
Amid fallout from the disastrous pullout, another crisis still unfolding at America's southern border. As illegal crossings surge to even greater highs, there's growing concern terrorists will take advantage of the chaos.
We have wide open borders. It is not that hard for somebody who gets loose to make it to Central America, to Mexico, and to come up and come across that border with that surge of humanity that's been coming across ever since President Biden took office.
This as scores of Afghans still wait in other countries, seeking to also begin a new life in America. As for President Biden's refugee resettlement plan, House lawmakers have already approved it. Next stop, the Senate, where Democrats have a razor-thin majority to get it passed. In Washington, I'm Tara Mergener, CBN News.
Thank you, Tara. Coming up, an inspiring tribute at the Boston Marathon. We introduce you to the mother-daughter duo making history. Next.
Protect your heart.
Tonight, a symbol of hope as some things start to return to normal. The Boston Marathon, back for the first time in more than 2 years.
18,000 determined athletes participated. Among them, a mother-daughter duo known as Team Babsy, who made history Monday as the first daughter pushing her mother in a racing chair.
Good morning, everybody. We can't wait to see you. See you at the finish.
They were inspired by Dick and Rick Hoyt, the iconic father-son duo that ran the marathon 32 times together. The mother-daughter pair said they wanted more people to know about the life-changing running chairs, and they were happy to pay tribute. Well, congratulations to them.
And well done.
Thanks for watching Faith Nation.
Have a great night.